YouTube. I'm Herptodurp, it's Monday, and that means it's time to embarrass myself with some random loadout. Yes, hi, Jackal. Today we're going to be doing the Tier 2 sortie mission because the Tier 1 was a shotgun-only mission, and I figured that limiting my loadout to a single weapon was against the spirit of doing a random loadout. But let's see what I get to embarrass myself with today. Now, obviously, it's going to be an augmented shield, so that's going to be fun. I hope something here has slash or toxin or magnetic or something to deal with Corpus with augmented shields. What do we got? Well, this could be a problem because none of these weapons are going to be fantastic for that. Decent quantity of impact damage at least should be able to help here. First of all, Gara, the Plains Vital on Warframe. Alright. So, I don't know why that power drift isn't maxed out. That's odd. That's a bit of a misclick when I was building that. Anyways, so what have I got going here for my Gara frame? As far as I'm aware, I only have the one loadout. Yeah. And what I've been doing here is I'm working with a heavy duration build, right? Because the entire goal here is to build Gara around her too, the Splinter Storm, because the Splinter Storm can give heavy damage reduction, and the longer that you have the Splinter Storm going, the longer that it lasts, and the more that you can recast Mass Vitrify to refresh the duration of it. So that all feels good. Plus, Splinter Storm can be cast on your allies, so Gara is giving huge amounts of damage reduction, essentially invincibility to her whole squad. Yeah, yes, thank you, Artist, thank you. I appreciate the interruption. Anyways, yeah, so the entire goal of this build is to work around playing her as a tank with the Splinter Storm. So first of all, Corrosive Projection, because why not, as the aura. Redirection Vitality. I'm going with Redirection here instead of Steel Fiber for a tank frame because Gara's armor is fairly low, and I'm relying more on the damage reduction from the aura to be able to tank harder. This is similar to the way that you would be taking Vitality and Redirection on a frame like Trinity that's got heavy damage reduction abilities. Next, we're going with Constitution, Prime Continuity, and Augur Message, so 3 different ability duration mods, which amps up the ability duration to 207% over double base, which is how the Splinter Storm I'm getting is lasting over 30 seconds. Then, Streamline for a little bit more ability efficiency. I still like to play this build with Xenuric just because I find that Gara does rely pretty heavily on that Streamline, or on the, rather on being able to cast and recast that ability to be able to keep her tank stats going. Plus, she's not a particularly good frame to be using something like Rage to supply energy to, since we're using Redirection in place of a heavier health pool here, right? So we're not going to take as many hits to her health. And then finally, Intensify and Power Drift, just to increase the punchiness of the damage of her abilities. Plus, also, if I'm not mistaken, those are also to max out the damage reduction. Let me quick check that. Intensify, Power Drift taken out, and you see the damage reduction is only at 70% on Splinter Storm. But if you add in, I believe, just the Intensify, does it? Yeah, just Intensify puts her to 90% damage reduction. So if you wanted to be using a different Exilus mod there, you could be doing something else. For instance, I've got Stretch on as the last mod here just to increase the radius of her Mass Vitrify somewhat. Just because, you know, the bigger the Mass Vitrify is, the more you can the more enemies you can be freezing solid with it. So that's all another thing that the build is okay with. And if you wanted to increase the radius of that, then you certainly could be using something like Cutting Drift in the Exilus slot, or you could just grab a Handspring if you don't think that the Knockdown Recovery from Constitution is enough, or something else, you know, Rush maybe if you want to run faster. Lots of options there. But that's the way that I build my Gara. Now, obviously, Shattered Lash has the it still has the scalings with melee mods because of the fact that it was not given its own exalted weapon slot when Digital Extremes did their exalted weapons. So it's going to be inheriting the mods and damage from my Prisma Obex. So let's see what I've got on here right now. Looks like I'm running Prime Pressure Point and Spoiled Strike for base damage. Honestly, with a weapon that attacks as rapidly as the Obex does, I can't really fault using Spoiled Strike here. And then Prime Fury, of course, to increase the attack speed a little bit, back up by quite a bit. Drifting Contact for combo duration, a couple of dual stat mods. And here I'm specifically running blast damage because of the fact that the Prisma Obex has this entropy detonation augment that causes it to deal extremely lethal ground finishers. And so the blast damage here and the heavy status chance giving more blast damage is designed to knock enemies down when the blast proc happens, right? Because blast proc's knocking enemies down, and once the enemy is sitting on the ground on their butts, then I can do a ground finisher for the lethal detonation, which then causes a massive explosion that usually kills everything in a radius. And it looks like for some reason I'm running Healing Return here as the healing mod. I can't really fault this on a very rapidly attacking status weapon again. I'm just going to go with this build for now, but I will say that another thing you could do is you could just use Life Strike for some healing if you wanted to do that, and then slap in Condition Overload here, and you'd probably be getting more consistent damage out of that kind of build. It would be... I would need to put a Forma into this weapon, though, to be able to fit that, since Condition Overload's a 15 capacity mod, and I don't have any polarities to slap that onto, so it won't fit without me removing something like Drift and Contact. In the meantime, let's look at my Prisma Gorgon. My Gorgon and my Bolto here both have Riven mods on them. So my Gorgon Riven currently is set up for just damage and reload speed. I know it's not anything special, but I've got 9 rolls on it, and this was the only roll that I thought made sense. And it's not a particularly, it's not a weapon I particularly enjoy playing all that much. So, as you can see by the fact that I've got this unranked Vigilante Fervor sitting on here for some reason. See, if I was to actually complete the build on this, what I would probably want to do is swap this fire rate mod, this junk fire rate mod, out for a prime shred. Something like this. Because on an automatic weapon, of course, punch through is hugely valuable. And this is obviously a decent amount of fire rate. Anything that fires as fast as the Gorgon and has as much recoil as the Gorgon, I don't think you really want to increase your fire rate any more than that 45% on prime shred anyway. So we're not going to worry too much about that, but the remainder of this build is just set up for a generic crit build. More base damage to stack with the Riven and Split Chamber for multi-shot, then High Voltage Malignant Force for some Toxin and some status chance, or not Toxin, for some corrosive damage and some status chance, because the weapon does hit a reasonably high status per second, and it's got a high fire rate, so you get to proc a lot of status effects. And then Point Strike Vital Sense for some crit damage, since the critical chance and critical multiplier on the Gorgon are pretty high at base. Looks like a 30% and 2.3 times, so not quite as crazy as the Soma, but getting quite a ways up there in terms of critical stats. You certainly don't want to be playing this weapon without some sort of crits, and I think that if I was to be re-rolling this Riven, what I'd be looking for would actually be something like some critical statistics, and then maybe some more punch through, or some more base damage, maybe some elemental damage, something like that. Maybe even some status chance in there, you know, since I was saying dual stats on this weapon is pretty good, since it's firing 15 rounds a second in each round. It's a 50% status already. So there's some options going on there. But the Bolto, I've not put any effort into getting made good at all. I mean, I had a few Forma-ends of the Gorgon, nothing here though, hardly. This Bolto Riven obviously has a high disposition, but the Bolto itself has a low status chance. So you're essentially relying on the Entropy Spike Augment to be able to get high damage out of this, where the Entropy Spike Augment is like the, what's the name of that? Okay, hang on. Well, what is the name of that mod? I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but you usually see people using it on the Hikus, right? That causes the weapons to explode on hit. Conceal explosives, right? Conceal explosives where the weapons explode on hit. Now, what I have on my Bolto is the Cephalon Pseudo Augment, which has the same thing, albeit with a much lower chance to proc. But even so, you still would want to be stacking fire rate and a lot of multi-shot to make sure that you're hitting that more often. So that's why I've got the Lethal Turret and the Barrel Diffusion on there. Hornet Strike for some damage, Deep Freeze because I've got a deep polarity here, and it's basically either Deep Freeze or something else. And actually, just because of this being an augmented shield sortie, I'm going to specifically take that off and go for Toxin damage off of Pistol Pestilence, because Toxin damage is able to bypass shields. So if I get something I can't kill with my other weapons, I'll pull this Bolto out and get some more damage on it. And then the Riven is just plus base damage, a very large quantity because high disposition, and plus damage to Grenadier. And actually a reduced fire rate, which is very negative. This is a Riven I've been looking to get some more cycles into recently. Just haven't really been worried about it. And then I've got my Worm Prime here, it looks like, which I've been putting a lot of effort into because of the new Negate Sentinel precept, which actually is, in my opinion, a fantastic Sentinel precept. I would be taking the Worm on any mission where you're expecting to be hit with nasty status procs. Anything from something going into the, what's the name of those things on the Plains of Island? The Ghouls? The Ghouls, because those always are proccing Toxin and colds and effects like that all over the place. Anything from that to a bonus slash damage sortie. Negate the fact that it only prevents one status effect from every 5 seconds doesn't really matter, because you only usually receive status effects in Warframe maybe once every 2 to 3 to, if the enemies are more sparsely spread out, maybe even 10 to 15 seconds apart. So Worm does a fantastic job of negating most, if not all, status effects with that negate. And then, of course, there's also the crowd dispersion, which is the base precept on Worm, and that is also really nice, where it'll knock enemies away from you. I would not want to be taking this if you're going to be doing a particularly high melee-oriented build, but in this case, because I've got the Prisma Obex, where they have that ground finisher synergy, this is actually a reasonably synergistic with my melee weapon, rather than the normal anti-synergistic stuff. Then, of course, the normal mods: Vitality Redirection for tank stats, Regions to keep it back into the fight a few more times, Sacrifice because Sacrifice, and then I've got Vacuum and Meta Ray, because Meta Ray is great for healing you up and keeping yourself sustained, and Vacuum is just a must-have on Sentinels, and same for Animal Instinct in my opinion. The last mod here I've got is just a low-rate copy of Guardian. You can also swap that for Shield Charger if you just like Shield Charger better than Guardian. If I was to put some more Forma into this, I'd probably put 2 more in and slap in a copy of Sanctuary instead of Guardian, because I do like Sanctuary. But that build should be just fine for now. Let me go swap down to my Operator, because I was running my last mission with Unairu, and I said I wanted Xenoric for this, because I do enjoy playing my Gara with Xenoric, since she does need an energy source. And let's go ahead and hop down to Tikko. Now, the other thing I'm not sure about is whether this is going to actually spawn sentient enemies, which could be a genuine problem if it does. But my Prisma Gorgon, I've taken into some pretty high-level content. I'm pretty sure this should be okay. I'm honestly more worried about the augmented shields just being too much for the frame to power through.
A lone Tenno active is raiding
But we got 10 minutes of survival missions. Let's get started.
Trigger the alarm.
And there's Splinter Storm, 45 seconds on it. Okay, I didn't know the exact number, but it looks like the 45 seconds is what we're doing for this. Oh, there's actually a indicator in the lower right. I haven't played my Gara in a while, so I didn't know that there's now an indicator for how much damage that's dealing. That's really cool, actually. Ah! Ground Finisher wasn't enough. Oh boy, this is not dealing anything resembling damage through those augmented shields. Well, Matt's Pitcher Fighter, just to refresh the duration on what's this bucket? Shatter Shield, whatever it's called. Wow, yeah, that is not hardly putting out any damage. Okay. Well, another thing worth noting, by the way, is that if you go ahead and shatter the Mass Vitrify wall while you're wearing one of these shatter shields on your Gara, then you will actually get the damage built up higher. So I'm assuming that's what that counter lower right is showing. No, maybe not. Well, hell, I don't really know what the 362 is showing, though. It's odd. You see what I mean, though, here, though, where I was talking about the redirection being a fantastic source of tank stats here? Because the damage reduction means that I'm not going to be... I can actually reduce the damage that's being dealt to these shields, as opposed to your average Warframe, where the shields essentially have 0 armor on them. So I'm perfectly okay with having this setup for tank stats. Oh man, without the carrier, I think I'm going to be out of ammo for this Gorgon in a hurry. And I'm not sure that the Obex is going to be doing too much more for me, so I'll have to rely on that Bolto. Yeah, it's not hardly killing these enemies. The blast damage isn't doing anything. Not very good against Corpus shields, I must admit. I am willing to go ahead and pop an ammo restore if need be. So that's nothing too ridiculous. Yeah, that's just odd. It says 362 damage in the lower right-hand corner. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to indicate, really. What I do know is that Mass Vitrify now has the scaling where when it absorbs enemies, yeah, you see up there in the upper right, 38.4k, that's the health of the enemies that's being absorbed. And that's how much extra HP that the Mass Vitrify has gained just from vitrifying said enemies. Also, this is not going particularly well. But, hey, what can you do? What can you do, you know? sometimes there's not much you physically can do. Yeah, it's odd because the damage on the Shatter Shield, as you can see, it does go up when you shatter those. Well, it used to go up when you shatter those mass vitrifies. Maybe that's been patched out. I don't really know. I haven't played Gara in a long while. I do enjoy this Warframe a lot, and I'm out of ammunition. Okay. Also gotta make sure I don't accidentally deal self-damage with that Bolto. Gonna be a bit tricky. One thing to be careful of, by the way, and that's got me a bit worried, is that Mass Vitrify on Gara does prevent enemies from receiving status procs when they're frozen. It's very much like Frost's Avalanche in that sense, where enemies that are frozen solid by the ability can't receive status procs, and that is doing a lot better at carving through those enemies than I thought it might. Also, I am out of life support. Holy cow. But the toxin damage on that is doing a lot of work.
That should keep you going.
This, by the way, is the endurance drift room that we're sitting in. I would love to explain how that works, but essentially, the important thing you want to do is crud, shoot, ran out. Oh well. The important thing you want to understand with the endurance drift room is that there's a lot of environmental interactions that you can use to block laser beams that are on hitting the tin that is standing down there on a spinning platform. And if you don't know at all what I'm talking about, I'll quick open this up, because you stand here and you'll be silenced. It should purge me too, yeah, and then all those laser beams come down. And there's a whole lot of environmental interactions that go on, but essentially what you want to do is you want to spawn in objects that block all those laser beams. Usually that room is comparatively hard to take without at least a 2-3 man squad, so that's why I'm not even going to try to do anything else other than start it up and let you folks watch what's going on there. But yeah, the toxin damage, as you can see here, is doing a lot of work. In retrospect, I probably should have set up my Gorgon with some toxin damage before going after this. But what's done is done. Yeah, I'm just having to go after these life support capsules one after the other. My word. These weapons are not doing a very good job of cutting through, specifically the augmented shields that are going on. Well, let's see if I can keep this going on for a couple more minutes. This does not look like it's going to be a day where I succeed, though, with the random loadout. Woo! My Gorgon have any ammo? One clip, okay. Not even a full clip, but I'll shoot this off. This is doing a better job at clearing through enemies, at least. Ah! I'm not happy to recast the ability like that, but sometimes it's just more convenient, you know? And I'm running out of Bolto ammo as well, so I think that this might be the point where I have to use an ammo restore or just call it a day. The augmented shields, man. Yeah, I would love to be bringing something in like the. Honestly, the Zenith would be fantastic here, actually, because of its ability to be set up with the high slash chance, you know, in the full automatic mode there. But you know, without something like slash procs or toxin procs, this is just not gonna work. Yeah. Put down one of those, but it doesn't matter. I'm out of life support. This is a failed mission. Ah, wow. So far, I am not having success at these, am I? Randomizers are hard, man. Randomizers are hard. Well, how about this? I'm going to go back and maybe I could have gotten some damage in with my operator weapon there. I'm not sure. You know, this kind of gotta think about the ways in which the strategy could have gone better here, right? But the biggest issue with this loadout, right, is that neither the Gorgon nor the Bolto is particularly well suited for dealing slash procs. You see, the impact puncher slash is heavily weighted towards impact on the Gorgon, which is okay versus shields, but honestly, against augmented shields, even a heavy impact weapon isn't going to make much of a difference. And the Bolto deals no slash damage and practically all puncture, which is very weak against Corpus shields. So without this toxin damage, it wouldn't have been accomplishing hardly anything. Now, if you want to talk about weapons that would have been fantastic in that sort of situation, one example, again, of a weapon that would be great here would be the Zenith, since this weapon is essentially similar to the Gorgon in terms of what it accomplishes, but instead of being built for crit, this is built for high status, and it's got a lot of slash damage. As you can see, over 214 slash to only 20-30 puncture impact, which is fantastic when you've got that 100% status chance on the weapon. And similarly, you could be going for other high status, high slash weapons like the Tigris series of weapons, or what would be another good example. You could maybe get away with the Dread, even, since the Dread does tend to proc slash very frequently. Also worth noting that any weapon that could run Hunter munitions would be fantastic. I don't really feel like the Hunter munitions was much of an option there in the Gorgon, because it was at only this is
diagnostic regressions.
The Gorgon Wraith. That's the wrong Gorgon. Right. The Prisma Gorgon is what I was using. It is at 75%, so you can maybe get Hunter munitions to work, but I don't really have the capacity here. I would be having to drop Vital Sense for it, which is going to essentially be cutting through my DPS just about as much as it could be. Now, in that particular mission, it might have been a good option, just to go for Hunter munitions. I don't really like using Hunter munitions on any weapon that has less than the 70 or 75 or so ending crit chance, just because with less the crit than that, it's not that effective in my eyes. Other weapons that you could use for high slash damage. On the primary side of things, peeking around here, just trying to come up with a few ideas. The Miter would have been utterly fantastic. The Miter is a fantastic weapon if you want to be slashing things. Plus, it's got the neutralizing justice augment, so it can cut through nullifier fields. That makes the Miter just an absolute silver bullet against corpus like the ones in the last mission who have huge amounts of shields. The Comb is a shotgun that does a lot of slash damage if you want to go full out with that. The Comb is not particularly good in endless missions because its ammo economy is terrible, but it's always available. The Hind has a surprising amount of slash damage on it if you want to use that. You know, Flux Rifle, the I didn't want to look at the Flux Rifle, I want to just point out the Dracoon. There's a ton of primary weapons here that would have a ton of slash damage, and it would be fantastic for that. Also worth noting is the Cyanoid Simulator, which deals a lot of base magnetic damage on its loadout. And so magnetic damage, when it procs, will go ahead and cut the shields down by 75% while the proc is active. And that would give the Cyanoid Simulator a huge edge in being able to cut through enemies that are having augmented shields. The same goes for secondary weapons. There are a lot of secondary weapons that would have been a lot more effective there. I've got my Axomate set up for slash, but the Arca Cisco is a well-known weapon for being able to deal pretty heavy slash procs. Same for something like the Fusilize, which are usually built as a slash status knife, or the Pandera deals a lot of slash and can cut through that kind of thing. The Cyanoid Gamma Core, again, is dealing a ton of magnetic damage, so that can cut through shields. You could set up your Pox to deal pure toxin damage. That would also be able to cut through shields. Similarly, for the primary, you could go with a Torrid that'll deal with that sort of thing. But that's the point I'm getting at, right? Is that in that sort of mission, there are some options that were available to me there that I wasn't able to take to be able to deal enough damage to cut through those fellas. That said, it's a Randomizer Monday, so what do you expect? Well, thank you very much, YouTube, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Have a good day.